Well, I'm Katie Corpus. I'm one of the two gallery managers here at Step Up Gallery at Mesa Public Library. I'd like to welcome everybody. It's nice to see so many smiling faces, friends of Tony's. We're really proud to present this work here at Step Up Gallery. It's new and exciting, and I find different favorites every day. I'm not going to say too much about Tony, but I hope to hear from him how he regards his engagement with the photographs, the thing that creates the art, the eye contact. That's what he's named the show, and I think he's uniquely qualified to talk about it. So I'd like to thank you and welcome you and let Tony take the floor.
Thanks, Katie. Well, thanks, gang. I appreciate everybody taking the hike to come over here, or unless you came from nearby. And thanks to Diane and Katie, Ace Art Gallery operators. They kind of make all this stuff happen. Luckily for me, they hung all that. Otherwise, you know. Anyway, so just a little short talk, and then I'm going to do a reading. But the first, just because I don't know how much people know about photography and the history of art and that sort of thing. And I've been thinking about this a ton. So it's best if I don't get rolling with it, really. But if you think about humans and imitations, visual imitations, right? Just something that looks like something else created by a human. It's an ancient thing. 30, 40,000 years ago in the caves in Europe and whatnot, people were already creating imitations of things they saw in the world. So it's apparently a fundamental human element of human consciousness. And people have realized it for a long time. Aristotle, way back, just said imitation is an instinct. And he didn't have to argue for that because it was just kind of self-evident. Anyway, so we are that way. We will go for imitations, which is kind of goofy if you think about it. Why would you want an imitation if you can have the real? Why would you do that? And yet we do. It's like, depending how you look at it, it's a disease or it's a source of creativity. The thing about imitation, going way back, visual imitation, painting, art, whatnot, is that the sort of ideal goal was to recreate a mirror image as a human production, painting. It's an ideal goal because actually if you succeed, you fail, because if it's a duplicate, it's no longer considered art, typically. But in any case, nonetheless, all through the history of painting and sculpture and whatnot, trying to get as realistic as possible was a main thing. It comes and goes over the centuries, but it was kind of always hovering there in the background. And then photography comes along, and for the first time in the history of humans, the ultimate realistic visual imitation got created. There was never, this is what people may not think about or remember or know, there was never anything like it. It was utterly revolutionary. And the reason, well, various reasons which I'll go into, but the way it worked originally, it's all changed now, but the way it worked was a photochemical operation. Light comes onto a chemical prepared surface, produces these images. It's a photochemical thing. So that made, so it was that, and the way that photography works is that it's that, and that removes any sign of a human hand from the image. Okay, it's photochemical, it's technological. A painting, any painting, is to a photograph more or less as a handwritten signature is to a typed signature. Okay, they both have typed signature, handwritten signature have the same content. They both, quote, mean the same thing. But a typed signature doesn't carry anything of the person, the actual individual psychology in the world, the person who created it. So because of that, even though photography produced the first truly realistic visual image, it was difficult to place it into art because it's got technology involved. In fact, it was a lot of people would argue that it's not right to call it an imitation. And so if you think about it, well, a photographic image, a photograph, isn't the same as the thing it's an image of, right? They're different. But it's an accurate recording of the real of that thing. And Therefore, it's the most realistic visual image ever, so why wouldn't that be art? It's been the goal forever. Nonetheless, removing the human hand made a difference. Painting of any kind is always is an interpretation, one way or the other, no matter how true to the real it tries to be, or not. It's always an interpretation, and so it always shows visible signs of an actual human creator. So it's the same thing again with photography. Originally, it did not. There's no way to overstate how important that was. So the irony is, oh yeah, here we finally get the ultimate realistic visual imitation, but it's not created by a human hand. It's created by technology. So the fact that it was taking this place in the history of visual imitation, but was a kind of technology, just makes it complicated. To this day, people will still not allow that photography. They might think it's really cool, but they wouldn't necessarily include it with art. But things that change, if you think about it, before photography, there was never a question of whether a human had produced a visual representation or a visual image. It never came up because there was no other way to do it. But when you have photography, oh, wait a minute, here it is, but I can't really say that a human produced this, and I can't find any signs of the individual in there. And for that reason, art photography is considered to lack authenticity. And authenticity is a huge term that if you start thinking about these things in the history of representation, it becomes very controversial, which it kind of is anyway. Authenticity is a term, it won't bear much scrutiny, but we all use it, know what it means. So the authenticity of art, which is that it's created by humans, doesn't get included. But then it creates its own new authenticity, which is this is the real. This can be used in court, right? This is the actual. The right word is photographic. This is the photographic image of the thing itself. But as far as not allowing it into art, photography into art, you can always say, well, photographers, they tinker with the image, they do developing, there are terms for dodging and burning and whatnot. They fool with the contrast and they fool with the lighting and whatnot. And so why would that not be art? Because the thing that makes painting art is there's one person who is doing all that stuff. But until digital, and especially until AI, no matter what, a photograph, there was always somewhere in there the original anchor to the real. If you're going to edit, or if you're going to doctor, you got to have the thing to edit and to doctor. And that was always a recording of the real. So, yeah, sure, photographers do like painters and they do mess with the image and whatnot, but nonetheless, there was always that thing there, which painting cannot do. Let's see. But over time, as will happen, people did begin to allow, that photography was art. And even whether as far as allow or not allow, it doesn't really matter. People respond, and because people respond to visual images. And even if those are made with some kind of machinery, so what? There it is, people respond. And a different kind of aesthetic, develops with photography. And it's an interesting thing. So photography is the ultimate realism, and it came around in the 1840s and 1850s, especially in Europe. But at that exact same time, a couple things are going on in the art world. French realism has got this big, substantial art movement in the mid-19th century. And it's trying to present everyday people as they would be seen, as much as you could with painting. But then there comes the photograph. Why bother anymore to do that? And people have argued this for quite a bit. It's not just coincidence that the emergence of Impressionism on the art scene in history comes at the time when photography begins to be very, very widespread. The painting world no longer needed to be worried about matching the real because there's no way they're going to do it as good as photography. So whether it's an exact cause and effect thing, it's hard to say. But nonetheless, there is a relationship there. And so Impressionism and then Expressionism, abstract, all kinds of things become the norm. Let's see. And I'm not going to go much further than that. So think about it in the history. It was utterly radical. It was utterly radical that those photochemical processes could do what they did. And in the given the way humans are about imitations, visual images, visual representations, all that business, it's really, really radical in that way. But it's still contentious. There are people right now who would say, oh no, it can't be art. But I don't know how you're going to say that with digital and AI, but nonetheless, people say it. So if you're thinking about photography, you're looking for photographs, it's something just to have in mind what a big, big deal this was. No one had ever seen anything like it. And it just exploded. And it also democratized itself right away. Like movies, photography spread around the world really fast. And completely took over the ancient tradition of portrait painting. All of a sudden, everybody was getting their portrait made with cameras. That's why when you see the old daguerreotype things, really stern-faced looking people, they are, that was because everybody jumped on it, which kind of says, I'm not sure what it says, but it says something interesting about humans, that as soon as you can get this absolute realistic representation, take it of me, and my loved ones, whoever, because they jumped right on it. It's like there was some insecurity that wasn't realized until they were able to have such representation. I don't know, I'm making this up. But still, it's interesting to think about the psychology. And, so I don't want to go on for a while. Well, in case any of you are public radio fans, you also need to know that I have a show on KSFR 101.1 FM out of Santa Fe. 9 to noon on Wednesday mornings. It's called The Morning Mix, and I hope you'll tune it in. And also, I have a website, which is it on here? I guess it's not on. Oh, that's right, it's on the photos. And so you can come, there's no charge. You can just come there and look at it if you want to. And what I'm going to read now is posted on that site. And if you don't know, I was an English major, and so I do writing stuff. And this is the thing I wrote. A lot of these pictures are of dead trees, right? Dead trees, desiccated trees. And I was, for some reason, got struck by those things. I've been struck, Ann's my wife, she's right there. Ann and I had always toured around out here, even when we lived east, and we love the desert Southwest and all the giant monuments that you see and all that stuff. But I just began to be moved by dead trees, and logs and stuff. Which is moved is an interesting word. Think about how, that's very moving. But in fact, the whole thing is that you're not actually moving. But that's what it's called. So this refers, in fact, to some of these images. But long ago, this would have been called an ode. But I'm not going to call it that. This is called Still Moving. The high desert juniper knots and twists through decades, stretching across centuries, struggling in silence with wind and earth and sun, sculpting itself by fits and starts into its own lonely memorial. A tireless well digger, it drives down its one route through stone records of ocean and dune, finding a fault, threading a seam, tapping, always tapping into just enough water to live. And the desert provides just enough water for life, but none for death. Without the luxury of water, there is no rotting here. Without water, no wet resting back into loamy soil that will grow following generations. No such consoling continuity. In the desert, life leaves death as drying remains, slowly, so slowly. At its end, animal life evaporates all at once. One final damp breath signs its expiration. But in the desert, wind and sun work carefully with what remains. Invisible fingers spirit away cell by cell the wet matter of the once living, leaving at last off-white bones, stretched skin, or, like tombs without bodies, the shells of insects. Without the luxury of water, no rotting here. But nothing all at once about the juniper. It dies as it lives, slowly, so slowly, molecule by molecule, through decades stretching across centuries. What's left sculpts itself as neither dry bone nor empty tomb. It remains still rooted, simply without water, no longer luxurious with life, but not shriveled, not empty, not quite dried to death. Passing through the desert, we rootless animals, if we should care to attend, may witness signs of the juniper's remains. If we should choose to look, they twist into still spirits of human movement. Like stoic pantomimes performing statues, they go on, still dancing, still celebrating, still reaching, still swirling, still praying, now still moving as we pass on. If we should choose to listen, they speak to us in voiceless figures, with arid tongues of eye poetry, eloquent desiccation deep-rooted in the rock. They provide their own perfect testaments. After struggling so slowly for so long, with dry wind, hard earth, hot sun, and just enough water, they're standing still. Rootless, we may simply pass them by, should we choose. Without water, they offer no consolation, no luxury, but still, always a kind of providence, always still moving. Thank you for listening. So, the next question. Everybody wants to ask how these paintings, photographs got to be that way. Okay, so it's digital. This is all digital, period. It's not AI, though it could well be. A whole bunch, if not all of it, could be AI. But I just have chosen so far not to use that. So I go out and see places and take pictures. I have an Icon D something, D7100, some fancy camera. And so the pictures I take in color, and it's digital. So then if you go into Adobe Photoshop, which is the defining kind of software for digital images, so here's my color image here. I can use, there are these tools. So I can use this tool, and they call it a layer, but that's, a metaphor. But you can put a layer of black and white, the same exact image, over the original color image, right? Then there's a tool that you can take and you can remove whatever of the black and white you don't want to keep. See that? So when you look at those ones that are colored black and white, the color was the original underlying shot. And then the black and white is, posed, whatever, it's added on there. And you can just erase what you want. So you can see they could be done 1,000 different ways. But that's the simple explanation of it. If you have questions, you can ask. If not, no problem, Rob.
So how long does that take?
It depends.
Like in this image behind you, to remove all that color, what's that process like?
It takes, well, I didn't know so I had it here, this is the original color underneath.
Right.
Then I put this black and white over that. So I only have to remove this.
Okay.
But it's with respect to doing that particular thing. So it depends. It can take a long time or not. It just depends on the individual image. But, yeah. Other questions? Yeah.
I thought the portraits of the lilies.
Yeah, that's also very digital. So somebody gave us some lilies, and they were in the mantle, in the living room. And so I thought, oh, these look cool. So I took pictures, and oh man, how do I explain that? So I got my picture of my lily, and then I create a solid, absolute black file. And then I can transport that lily into that black file. That's why it's so black. If I were just to do erasing of it, you could do it, but first of all, it'd take forever. And you sometimes leave little remnants that you don't want. So I just created a solid black image. Yeah, it's an image. And then parked that on there. And then, God, there's the editing detail. It's interesting because compared to photographic editing, it's really simple. You don't have to mess around with chemicals and have half-lights on that stuff. But on the other hand, because you can do so much, you wind up doing so much. And it goes on and on and on. It takes hours and hours. Something like this, this is not such a good example, but these things like in here, and this in here, anywhere where you see dark colors, when you shoot that, for the most part, these little things they'll be black. Just because it's shadow, I mean, this will be black. But if you're out in the sunlight and you look around, you'll see shadows in plants or whatnot. And they'll be dark, but they won't be black. If you concentrate on them, you will see, typically, some kind of detail in there. So I try to edit these things so that it's like that. But since the camera itself, because of its nature, it picks these things up in black and these details up. There are more of them in there that would be more clear in black and white. And it's not a problem. I mean, you could print this shot just like that. But black, whatever else it does not provide depth. It's just a surface. So if you take the trouble to go and you can do these little editing things and you bring up the contrast on these little dark black spots, the information is there, right? And then you can see it, because before you couldn't see it because of the nature of the equipment and the photography. But it's there. And so a thing that you can do with digital editing, that I guess you could do it with film, but it sure would be tedious. I'm not even sure you can do it. But so what you trade off is you just spend all these other hours doing things that you wouldn't do developing. But it causes that horse picture, that's the best example. All of those little things in the back, like, because it's a big expense, they were all black in their core. But I went through and did them, and so it makes it look more 3D-ish, kind of. Yeah. Other questions? No requirement. Yeah.
So when you're setting up the shot, you're out in the world and you guys are traipsing around and you see something, when you start framing it in your eye and you bring your camera to it, do you already know what you're going to pull out as part of the movement, or does that process happen when you get it back on the computer, or is it?
Yes.
Both?
Yes.
All of it. When you see it.
So, first of all, I've only been doing this seriously for a few years. I don't even know why this happened. I was an English major. I was supposed to be doing that stuff. Anyway, so I would take pictures, but it's beautiful out here, and I find it very moving to see the things that are here. So then, you might as well take pictures. And so I would just take pictures of things that looked cool. But once you start doing photography, then you start seeing the world as photographs, right? You have the aesthetic of the technology begins to make you see things. And since it's not film, it's digital, you can just shoot, and hope for the best. And used to do film photography, and you have to think about everything because it's so expensive, and you gotta get it just right. Oh, I can't just shoot. Digital, you just go and go. It's like your iPhones, it's the same thing. So now though, because I've been doing it, I do kind of register things. I think, oh yeah, I can do something with that. So more so than before. A lot of it before was luck. So.
Tony, have you ever manipulated an object that you're about to shoot, or do you have a personal ethic of play it as it lies?
No, the ones that I shoot out in the desert, they're just there. I may have pulled a weed away from somewhere, but no, those are just there. All the manipulation comes later. Yeah. So the main objects of all the photographs are actually, I can take you to that. They're there. Even the stupid dead woods. There are some of them I've been to 2 or 3 times. We were up in Arches just last week, and I went for the 3rd time with this place that I've been trying to get a picture of this big dead tree. And I finally got it, actually, but too late to put it in here. So yeah, but nonetheless, I could do that. Nobody would know the difference. And the big thing is AI. Any of this stuff that you see in there, pretty much, I could have done with AI. I just didn't. So be prepared. It's here. It's gonna affect all kinds of things. Big time. The question is, if you say, oh gosh, that's just AI, why do you say that? What's the problem? Let's say you find a beautiful image, photographic image, and then you find out, oh, it's AI. Why are you disappointed? Most people are. What's missing? What's lost? What's the problem? If it's beautiful, it's beautiful. Same with music. You can order an AI program to compose a 15-minute piece in the way of Mozart. And let's say you hear it and you don't know. And then you think, oh, this is really a cool piece of music. But then if you find out it's AI, it can be disappointing. Question is, why would that be? Anybody have an answer? What's the problem? If it's beautiful, it's beautiful. If it sounds beautiful, it sounds beautiful. Oh, but you guys are all okay with that. Ah, cool. All right. I haven't known that many people who are. Anyway, it's a murky topic, but it's here. It's our time. Anyway, other questions? Bueno, thanks a bunch. I really appreciate you guys coming. And I can walk. Thank you. I can walk through there if you want. I don't promise that it will be very illuminating, but I'll be happy to do that. It's up to you, either way. Have some snacky foods.